Welcome to Trail Talk. I'm your host, Aaron Shimmons. Thanks for joining our Ultra Trail show. This week, I've got a very special guest, Patrick Stangbye, the creative director of Portal, an apparel company that makes product in hiking, running, and cycling. So very unique. The stuff is really cool looking, so check it out. Before we get there, thanks to our sponsors, XMiles, Tantrums, and GOREWEAR. Links are in the description. That's where you get the discounts, 15% at Tantrums, 30% at GOREWEAR, and I think 10% at XMiles. Support them because they support us. Anyway, let's go chat with Patrick. Patrick Stangbye, welcome to Trail Talk. For the Trail Talk audience, why don't you introduce yourself? Let us know where you're sitting. I know where you're sitting, but let everyone else know.
Yeah, my name is Patrick Stangbye. I'm 35 years old. I'm currently in Chamonix, France. So yeah, preparing for TDS in about a month. So happy to be here. I'm a trail runner, but I also work in outdoor industry. Used to work also in the fashion industry, coming more from a kind of strategic advertising product background. So I did a lot of different things and I worked with a lot of different people, but I'm sure we'll touch on some of that. So yeah, but happy to be here and happy to have a conversation with you today. So
I've read a couple of blog posts and things just when I was doing some research. And one of the things that kept coming back was the live fast or live slow, stay fast motto. Maybe you could
yeah,
talk a little bit about that just as an intro.
for me, I think it's also something I aspire to do. It's not always the case in anyone's life today, but I think we all live really busy lives, or at least sometimes, and work can get to people, things can get kind of complicated. So it's more about prioritizing maybe what is important to you and try to have some sense of focus and yeah, make some decisions. I really believe that if you want to perform in one realm, it can be sport, but it can also say if you really want to perform in your work, you cannot do everything else in your life to the same standard. So we all have to have some kind of direction and choose. And that's not always pleasant to choose something, but we need to realize what we care the most about and then make some choices. But I think it's also like I'm really into doing research. I like digging deep. That's when I'm the most happy. Like sometimes I can go off tangents, which are maybe not even important for what I'm doing, but I really enjoy it. And sometimes I figure something out and I find something new, but it might also not always happen. I think that's a bit also like the kind of slow part is that taking time to do the things properly or trying to do them properly might not always even be done properly in the end. So yeah, I think that's a bit just what I aspire to do. And then sometimes my life in the past years have been completely hectic and crazy. And I've also not been good enough at saying no to stuff. So sometimes other people and other companies' needs have come before my needs. But I think that's the nature of how we also need to live, some of us, especially if we need to work. That's that's a part of it. Yeah.
So are you like what I'm hearing from that is like it's maybe difficult to spread passion thinly and it's more important to like direct that passion into what's important.
Yeah, I think so. And I think for me as well, it's important sometimes to go deep into stuff. I also have some friends, they have like very wide interest, right? But I see also that they're completely lacking focus. Like if I knew, it's like, okay, I have friends who are amazing photographers. I really respect the craft. I'm also sometimes dabbling a bit in photography on a hobby basis when I ever find the time when I'm traveling or inspired, but it's not something I continuously do daily. But then you have a friend and he meets the photographer and he's like, oh, I want to buy his Leica now or his expensive camera. And like, but guys, you're a road cyclist with a normal job. I know you. You're already spending all your money on your road bike and all your time to travel on the road bike. So maybe don't dabble in photography at this point, you know? And of course, you can do a bit of both. And I think some people are more versatile than others. I think yeah, also me, like if I go into something, I go kind of deeply. That also with my running, and we can talk about that. So I always maybe want to try to find my own limits, which is not necessarily everyone else's limits. But yeah, so it might differ, but at least my mentality is that I really appreciate what happens when you find the opportunity to spend a lot of time on one activity or one topic or yeah.
That is that is so interesting because it really aligns with the personalities that are drawn towards trail and ultra running. If you think back to, yesteryear, the time of the hobby seems like it's past, and now is the time of the you need to go in with both feet and go after your passion and embrace whatever you love and go after it wholeheartedly. And it feels like it to me, it feels like that's is something that's uniquely ultra running, but maybe it's actually more of a trend in humanity right now.
Yeah, and I think still there's different personality types and different people, and some people live a more conventional life than others, and I think that's completely normal and fine. But yeah, I mean, I didn't run Western States myself yet. I used to be very scared of the race, and I even jumped out of the lottery at some point because I had some really bad heat experiences, and now I regret jumping out and I'm back in again. But I even like I understand that like that race changed the life path of so many people who are locals to that race. Like it changed what they ended up doing in their life, how they worked, where they live, what they're currently doing. So I think also as a sport, like ultra running, it can be kind of captivating or like take total control as well, right? And for some people that's good, for other people it's maybe not as beneficial. But even myself at this point, I'm not professional. I've been in Chamonix since I had to go out a few times for some work, but I've been here since late June. And people are like, why are you not home? So yeah, it's like, yeah, I think that's the answer to the question.
Well, yeah, and it's also it's a great place to be. I mean, I'd love to touch on your career history and then come forward into where you currently are with the creation of Portal. Could you talk a bit about your kind of your pre-Portal career and how you went down that route?
Yeah, I for the past 4 years before Portal, I worked for an Italian kind of outdoor fashion brand called Roa. So when I started working with them, I knew some people in this company from before that I had worked for with different projects. They had just acquired most of this brand. They had been a distributor and kind of helped with marketing for this brand in the past. And then it was mostly a footwear brand at that point. And I think that brand was sitting in this space that they found a lot of mountaineering and hiking boots too technical for their use case. And then they found some things not premium enough or more considered enough. So they landed in this space, which are mostly casual, but still at some point, like it's built with VBram with like the right components. So you can use it for hiking, but you cannot put a crampon on the shoes, right? So not super technical and not for trail running. So I came in and I understood these activities. I grew up as a snowboarder. I grew up close to the forest, like suburbs of Oslo. So a lot of these outdoor activities were kind of native to me or close to my heart. So I understood the codes and the design language and how to kind of integrate also in a normal modern lifestyle sense. So yeah, I worked on that for 4 years as a creative director and helped kind of push the apparel as well. And yeah, before that, I had done some consulting, but not as long term. So I worked with a lot of outdoor brands that were maybe more sitting a bit more in this modern space or trying to have a more modern look. So yeah, I did say campaign stuff and things for Klattermusen, dabbled with a small project with Salomon in 2019, some stuff that never got realized, some stuff that got realized. So yeah, been around that kind of space. Um, for like personal passion reasons. But then before that, I was in advertising agencies and work on kind of like all kinds of different clients. So I was in fashion when I was young, from I was 19 until I was 24 while I studied. So I worked a lot in Paris. I'm Norwegian, but I used to go there. It's just 2 hours by flight. So I was working in showrooms, I did sales, I did marketing. I was in the kind of industry and got to know people because of my personal interest as well. But I felt a bit alienated at some point when I was like 24 and needed to find a proper job. So in that industry, I think it's also important to say that it's almost impossible to make it unless you have very strong connections, but also come from a certain background. So it's very much what I realize is that the creativity in that industry is run by the elites in terms of financial elite. So it's usually kids of people who have the funds to fund the lifestyle. So sometimes a lot of these people seem very successful financially, but it's not the case. So you cannot really play or enter that space and pretend if you're not making money and you don't have money. So I felt a bit kind of alienated and I wanted to leave because it didn't really resonate with me because I needed a proper job, like in order to sustain my life. So I left and I did something else for a while and yeah, slowly understood what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. And then I was lucky enough or fortunate enough that some people took a bet on me to consult on some stuff. And sometimes I probably didn't charge them enough, realizing after what it provided for them. But I mean, it's also a good experience and stuff you do when you're young. But yeah, it's also, if we go on to go to Portal, then I think Portal also the idea came while I was consulting on a project in London for Rafa. I met some people there and that I kind of knew from before, but we worked together very well. And I think not only on necessarily on that project, but through a lot of work I did as a consultant, you're happy that you can do your research, but at some point you don't make the final decisions. You're not accountable. And I personally never thought I would be a business owner because there is a lot of things in a business I don't really want to deal with in at least in theory. And now I deal with them because I need to be responsible together with the team, of course. But we figured that, okay, if we are actually accountable, we can make the final decisions because there were a lot of products or concepts or things that didn't get pulled through because someone at the board or someone in like a leadership group don't believe in it. And I also maybe on a personal level, I cannot speak for the rest of the team, but I think a lot of points of view are valid in this industry and other industries. And sometimes I sense some sort of friction that people try to protect what they have. They don't want newness. They don't want this group to enter. But I was also getting tired of trying to protect or to defend my own perspectives. So it's like, I think my point of view can be quite valid, and other points of views are also valid. I'm not trying to this kind of take away credit from other points of view, but I also think my point of view is valid. So let's maybe create something where we can have our point of view, and then we can try to build that as a story. So that's kind of where Portal started. And I mean, even from the go, we combine different activities because me, at this point, I'm mostly a trail runner. Currently, I'm training between 15 and 20 hours of running a week. I'm also working. That means I'm not finding a lot of time to ride my bike. Uh, but I mean, I still really love the bike as a vehicle. I grew up riding mountain bikes. I think it's cool. I was a rider before I was a runner. So in terms of identity, I'm neither or. But we also face this thing that even still now in Paris, in our showroom in June, some people say, you're a running brand doing cycling. Then some other store says, you're a cycling brand doing running. And we're trying to say, guys, we care about horizontal movement. We want to move over distance. Whatever your tool is, we don't really care. We also do hiking. So it's like we're really inspired by true hikers and people who are saving weight and trying to go fast, even hiking. So even if we're a bit less in that space for now on a personal level, that's something I really admire, and I'm inspired by products that happen in that realm and people and their experiences. So yeah, that's a bit about like how we got to Portal, at least through my career. And yeah, I would love to have started this brand when I was 25, but I think it was also smarter to start it at 35. And I think also today we have there's this, at least in media, there's always this kind of drive that someone did something crazy in their early 20s, but I'm not sure how people arrive to do that. So
Yeah, that's interesting what you're saying about the showroom experience where people are already coming in with the siloed thinking on cycling or running and the crossover. So for you personally, did you identify as a cyclist and then you've moved into running? Or like how has that impacted on the cycling and the running with Portal?
yeah, I'm in a way like I was a cyclist when I was young, or like say younger, and then I also kind of left cycling when I started studying. I was riding fixed gears when I studied, like many people, because that was the timing. And probably I still identified as a cyclist because I was riding my fixie to university or but I was not like a hardcore cyclist at that point. So I think I didn't really have either of those identities. It's just like I started running, say in my mid late 20s. So then I became a runner, but it was not like I've not been a runner my whole life, or I've been jogging like many people. I'm trying to separate the jogging and the running. But like, so I was in good shape. I was doing some activities. I was also running fast when I was running. I had my junior high school record in 5K belonged to me. So, and I was a skateboarder at the time and snowboarder. So I'm not sure. Someone should have maybe told me that I should try running, but nobody told me. So I was just very competitive. So, yeah.
You were ahead of your time at that point then. So, like with the running and the cycling, a lot of like people who we were talking about earlier on, where runners now want to be really, they want to identify as runners, and cyclists also want to identify as cyclists, and you see it in the creation of the kind of the cool hubs that are popping up around the city. I used to live in London, thinking about the one that was round the corner from me, Knees Up,
Yeah.
which is kind of run centric, but I see the cycling kind of. I'm not sure. There's more talk around cycling there as well, and it feels almost like they were they're well into running, but maybe they're now broadening out their interests and deciding to bring cycling in as well. Like, just thinking about where Portal is positioned, it almost feels like it's a niche of a niche then,
Yeah.
where it's trying to cover the three.
Yeah. No, in a way, I think you're right. I mean, it's like can be super niche initially, but I think also we want to build versatile products. And this was some of our problems that, and I know the guys from Knees Up and like a few of the people who started it, they're really into riding, or they have nice bikes, even commuter bikes, or they're really into that kind of space. And then there is another shop in London now that is more cycling centric called Benchmark. They're closer out towards Epping, and they also do running now. So I think people are mixing, and it's fine to mix, and it's endurance sports in the end. And some people are not that competitive or want, so they might mix a bit and like, okay, if it's raining on a Tuesday evening, it's much more enjoyable to do a run probably than a road ride. So okay, I'm changing what I'm doing then. So I think people are mixing and they're interested in both. I don't think we are a brand that is for people who necessarily need to do all the three things. They just need versatile products so they can mix in between the activities and they can choose. I mean, we saw at least so far in some kind of we're really doing well in Korea already, and most of the Koreans who are buying, they are running. So okay, so that's kind of isolated, right? Maybe they think it's still cool that we're doing some stuff with the bikes, but they are not really, say, involved so much in that. Of course, then we have also people in Korea who bought our cycling bibs and they are like on road bikes or gravel bikes or even mountain bikes. So I don't think we try to convince everyone that you need to do all these things to buy Portal, but we want the activities as a yeah, as a kind of foundation for the product we create. Because yeah, right now, I mean, it's cold here in the morning. I'm sitting here wearing this kind of yeah, Polartec Alpha insulated jacket that for me, I run in this in winter when it's like minus 15 degrees in Oslo. So it's maybe not like a run jacket for most people, most places, but it's super also nice for cycling in like late fall, winter. Then it's a really good hiking jacket even in summer. So I still think that's the kind of perspective we have, that we try to build a wardrobe that is an active wardrobe. And I even went ski touring with this jacket. We're currently not communicating anything about ski touring, but I think some of the people who already buy our product, they are probably also doing that activity. And people are also smart today. So when they see a jacket, they can also understand, oh, maybe that fits into my winter wardrobe, or yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Epping a few minutes ago. I remember saying to, I forget who I was talking to at the time, but I remember seeing some Portal imagery, and I was thinking, I think that looks like Epping. And I was like,
Yeah, that's where
what
our
is the
first
London
campaign, yeah.
connection? I didn't know what the London connection was, but I
No,
recognized
yeah.
the location.
Yeah, the company is based in London. So two of the co-founders, they're in London. So yeah.
talk a little bit about, because it's four people in total, including yourself. What are the things that you're like? Maybe you can talk best about yourself, but what does everyone bring into the table there?
Yeah, I think we're coming from the same mindset and we wanted the same things to happen in the same space. So we're four people. So there is also John Roberts that I met at Rafa. He was the product director there for many years, and he was at Speedo before that, working on the kind of Olympic line, or he's acting maybe more as our kind of CEO at this point as well. So he's like very rational, product driven, knows how to kind of operate on the business level as well. We're doing a lot of the sourcing, costing of sourcing, has the connections for that kind of stuff as well. And yeah, me and him, we usually start briefing also the products and how to kind of evolve or what direction to go. And then we have our other partner also from London called Barry Bloor. So he's coming more from a real branding agency. He was a consumer of all of these things from before, and he knows the space very well. But he's more a digital guy. He knows the e-commerce parts. He knows branding. So yeah, there's some overlap there, of course, with my also history at an agency. But he has a much more experience in agencies. Like he's a bit older as well, so he spent more time in that culture. And then we have Colin Meredith. So he's based in Vancouver. So we're fully global. So yeah, he's the technical or our designer. So like when we brief stuff and we work together, Colin is the one who does the actual design and the tech packing of the product. And then there is a dialogue, of course, back and forth. So yeah, I think that's like it's working very well. There's some overlap in some of our skills, but I think that's good as well because then we understand and we can talk the same language. But we're not stepping on each other's toes all the time, every day. And then, of course, on top, when you have a startup, everyone is doing stuff they never did before, or at least maybe not their favorite thing to do or what they're an expert at doing. So I think that's how it goes. Yeah.
I was surprised to read that Portal was only launched this year because I feel like I've heard about it for at least 18 months or more. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
maybe. I
how's that
think
even
there were some
possible?
rumors. Yeah, I mean, we started 2.5 years ago, the project. I
Okay.
think that's also if you want to if you want to do technical apparel really fast, you can go to some factory and they will have some, say, nylons and polyester t-shirts and things that you can do. But we went to these fabric fairs to source materials and pick everything ourselves. None of these things are in stock. You need to order the fabric. They need to make the fabric for you. We're using a lot of the same suppliers immediately that say Arc'teryx, Patagonia use for their more like mountaineering stuff, North Face Summit Series. So we knew a lot of these people from before. We had to convince them to work with us as a new company. And we managed for most of them immediately. And then some of them took a season more to come around. But we're very fortunate that we could do it that way, but it's also time consuming. So we needed to start. I always have these things like when we're sharing something from a showroom because we want to be open and want people to kind of, we need the kind of like also some of the energy, right? That comes from people being excited because we're still young. People are like, oh, when can I buy this? And then I said, okay, now the stores are placing an order and then you will be able to buy for example, what we showed in June, you will be able to buy in February. And then some people are a bit let down. They're like, oh, it's such a long wait. It's like, and then I just imagine for myself, like we probably started working on the product a year and a half before when it shows up in the showroom. So it's like that's my cycle, and I also still have to wait until February before I usually have my jacket. So it's like it's usually takes like 1.5, 2 years before I have an idea or we have an idea together before we can actually have the final version. So I think that's just the nature of building product in that way. And you can sometimes build some stuff faster, but that's the reality of that level of product. And we're still young. We're probably going to do some mistakes, but we have also done a lot of mistakes in the past with our previous experiences. So I think we're very happy so far with what we have provided and done. And we are slowly iterating. And I think that's also the idea with what we do, that we don't want to do like a collection or a seasonal thing. We try to build a foundational wardrobe with modern tools. And then if we find new tools that we need and we still I mean, we're not covering a lot of things that we still need to cover. We will build in those directions. And if some of those products need changes, they will get a new iteration, but we're not going to make a new iteration just so you need to upgrade your shorts, for example. I find that a bit useless today. And of course, it's like maybe blasphemic to say, but I struggle working with product today, say from a sustainability perspective, or we're just making more things for this world. But at the same time, sometimes I go into like a sports outlet store and then I see the shit that some companies are making. And then I don't feel bad anymore. Then I'm like, okay, I will stop working with product if all these other people stop first. Then I'm also happy to stop. But they need to stop first because they're not putting any attention or detail. And I understand that sometimes we need things at different price points. What we are doing is also quite premium. We don't want to be very high price, but at the same time, it's not something we communicate so hard, but we try to use recycled where we can, especially dealing with synthetics. So we're trying to use recycled version of modern synthetics. For nylon, you can recycle almost indefinitely, so it's a good solution. But for polyester, you cannot recycle maybe more than 10 times in theory. So it's also not a final solution, but it's a good, at least it's a better alternative to not having virgin materials where we are now. So that's not our main story to make people buy product. We're trying to make a high quality product that fulfills their use case. But I think it's a bit of a hygiene factor almost today to try to do something a bit better. And we were also upset that some, say, bigger competitors, they're always making this kind of excuses for why they cannot do this and that recycled. And then we found it not so much more expensive, to be honest, to do it, or from the same suppliers at the same quality. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. We've seen over the past couple of years the rise and increase of outdoor brands at Paris Fashion Week.
Yeah.
And you guys were there showing some stuff. How, like, it seems like some brands are doing it, some brands are interested, and some brands don't even have it on their radar. Talk a little bit about why you think that being at Paris Fashion Week is important for a brand like Portal.
I think for us initially, it's the fact that, say, we also really want to sell to traditional outdoor retailers, but out of experience, they are very slow in their adoption curve. So, say, maybe they're listening to this podcast, but someone like REI probably takes like 8 to 10 years before they would even look at Portal. And that's their normal way of being. Maybe they're changing as well and they're adapting to the changes, but that's the kind of traditional cycle also in Scandinavia. Or so we really respect some of those retailers, but we didn't have any belief that we could meet them immediately. And we think that, say, fashion is now also very interested in sport. They're interested in running. They're interested in outdoor. They were interested in Gorpcore as a kind of team. I don't really like this word, but I understand where it comes from and what it's kind of doing. So, but they wanted also utilitarian functional clothing, like the same way they used to sell Carhartt or workwear. They now also wanted to sell outdoor clothing. So for us, it was a way to enter some market with some of these fashion doors that sell sports goods. And then at the same time, some of these modern running doors, especially, not so much the modern cycling doors, some of them showed up this time also physically, but they also started to go to Paris to bring some more excitement into their shops. So there is this modern wave of run stores that you say, okay, Knees Up also will start retail that you talked about, but there is like Distance in Paris, there is Renegade Running, there is like a lot of these kind of Loop. There is, a lot of these kind of wave of say modern run outdoor shops. They started going to Paris, so for us it made sense to go there to meet them. And still, like, Fashion Week is so vast and big in Paris for someone who has not been. It's not one fair. We had like a separate gallery space or a showroom that the only people who came to see us were people who knew where we were and could come to visit. So there's, of course, like a craziness in terms of like fashion shows and other brands that are sitting in a different segment that they are not even aware that we exist or we are in Paris, right? So I think from the outside, it can sometimes seems like it's everything is in a fair or like one location, but that's also not true. So I think that's why we see a lot of these brands there. And of course, I think it helped a lot with, say, Salomon or On or some of these footwear brands that are popular and still sits in the kind of outdoor or run space. They were already present in the past, yeah, Salomon since like say 2018, 2017, 2018. So I think that they have also built this foundation that also buyers from these shops, they are expecting to see some kind of sport goods or outdoor goods or in the kind of period as well.
What brands are out there that are inspiring your decisions at Portal? Maybe more so in the run space than the cycling or hiking?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's difficult to say for me at this point. I've been in this industry both as a consumer, but also working since I was 16 years old. So it's like soon 20 years. And I don't really have the same excitement at this point for any. I used to be a fan of a lot of things. I'm not such a fan anymore. I respect a lot of things that has happened historically. I have my references, but yeah, in this current time, I'm not sure I'm really looking to someone else for to make our decisions. So I think there is also Portal is not something completely new in a way. I mean, I have been looking through magazines of old outdoor brands that don't exist anymore and some that do exist. And even how we try to communicate, there is a lot of brands who try to communicate the same at different points in time. So I think we're even maybe looking a bit more back for who inspires us. But of course, I think it's beneficial that there was the wave of, say, like Satisfy, District Vision, who are kind of like pushing ahead in terms of like they're having their own aesthetic. They're opening up. I think that's what was for me very inspiring with seeing those things happen in that wave, which was maybe like just a wave before us. Is that before a runner was looking a certain way, and then you can disagree if you're like fully like a satisfied runner or not, or if you're like the spiritual district vision kind of runner. But at least they offered a different solution. And now I think we see across the board very different solutions also with yeah, people who are like more casual, like Una, or it's like, okay, it's for someone like it's basically for how I understand it, more a brand that is coming from the run club culture or for the run club culture. And that's not necessarily fully me, right? I'm looking for like performance for mountain, but I kind of understand that there is a lot of people that like they're living in cities, they're meeting up for a 5K and they're doing it for social reasons. And I think that's beautiful and that's cool. And having also then brands that can exist around that, it's probably beneficial because you might not need Salomon S Lab made for Francois Dane like calf sleeves to do that. Yeah, like that Stockholm 5K.
Well put. So the muted colors and the move away from a sporty look in all of running, that's something which a lot of people would say, yeah, it started around or Satisfy kind of led that movement, and they have really lent into the run clubs, and every month now there's a run club in most of the major cities. And as you've mentioned, and we've touched on, there are the run hubs as well that are almost connected to these things as well. Knees Up being the one in London. I'm in Sydney, and the Furies is the run club here. And maybe at one point, it's maybe connected to a coffee shop or a store, a run crew, and now Satisfy's connecting onto those brands. How how important do you see that run club movement in terms of like the growth of the sport, but also like how it might how what's the impact on Portal and how you think about that brand and the marketing around the brand?
Yeah, I mean, I really think it's a good thing with the run club. I probably came from the generation of the run crew, you know. I mean, there was in London, there was like Run Dem, there was like Embro in Copenhagen, there was like Black Roses in New York. When I started running, I was running with a kind of crew in Oslo that was like similar to that, that is now not existing anymore. And I think that was, yeah, that was also, maybe it was less inclusive in a way in that era, but there was also just less runners. And people were maybe training a bit more together, or it was like people who went to races together. And then I was a part of a similar thing that was more on trail. So I think it's fundamental today for the new understanding of the sport, because if you didn't grow up in a like a track and field club, that's where you meet your fellow runners if you enter the sport. So I think it's like amazing that you can go even here in Chamonix now. I've not been, but there's like a local run club, and they're doing like 5Ks in the valley. I think if you're arriving and you don't have anyone to run with, it's amazing that you can go there and meet other runners, and you can talk about shoes, or you can talk about watches, or your pace, or you can talk about what pastries you're eating after, or your coffee, or I think it's amazing. So for us in Portal, we are more outdoor in a way. That's what we're kind of focused on. We're also not opposed to road running, but we're not really focusing on road where we are now. We do run road, all of us occasionally, and also Barry lives in the middle of London. So John is out in Epping, so he has the trail at his doorstep. So he doesn't need to, but we don't really, we build a product for city people who go out on adventures, not necessarily for that activity in the city. So for us, it's maybe not so fundamental for where we are going. But I mean, we think it's a good addition to the space in general, and that it's a way people can experience and enter into the sport. And we did a few activations ourselves for runs, but we want to bring people, maybe we want people to do like a long run with us. Or we took people in Epping, like we had a retailer in central London. So this spring, we took people from like out in Epping and towards the city again. And some of the people who joined us, that was the longest run they ever did. I think in the end it was like 22, 23K of mostly trail. But I think it's super cool to provide that experience to people as a brand. Of course, it's a bit more difficult than showing up at a coffee already central and going for a short loop and then like getting images and activating as a brand. But I found it more meaningful to do that or to provide that activity to people, where some people push their limits and some people just had a nice day in the forest. So I suppose that we want to do more things in that direction. We also had the ride out of the Benchmark, the store I mentioned previously. That was this the kind of yeah, it's a super long ride, like or like 120K, but some stuff is not really well marked or well paved, and some of the trails are a bit yeah, could need some more maintenance. So when people did that on a gravel bike, they maybe expected to spend 4 or 5 hours, but they spent 10. So or 12 even for some people. So I think, of course, you don't get 250 people to show up, but you get to give people a different sensation or experience. I think for us that's valuable, also as a kind of way to communicate that we are more about adventure, and that the adventure can start and happen in the city. It's not like you need to be like me and yeah, stay 2 months in the mountains. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, because most of, like, so many of the runners and the people getting into running are based in the city, based in the towns, and they're going out to seek the trails. I've always been based in a city and went out to trails, or out to the mountains. And I actually remember that portal run that was from the city out to Epping. I know that route well. Just moving forward more into, like, a couple more questions on Portal, and then I do want to chat a little bit more about your own running.
Yeah.
Like, what are the important markets for Portal, and what is the demographic that you see as uh, critical to the brand? You know, we see a lot about the crossover of, like, golf and Ironman is a similar demographic, and ultra trail has some synergies there as well. And it doesn't really marry up with my own thinking because I feel like those two sports are like totally different than anything I would want to participate in or even watch.
Yeah.
How how do you think about like target markets and what's important to you?
Yeah, I think, of course, it's important, these things, right? And these are some of the strategic work that used to happen also, say, when I worked for other companies. But I think this is coming a bit more from a kind of purist perspective. And we just do exactly what we want to do. We think we are the consumer. We believe there are a lot of people like us. They are probably mountain people and adventure people and long distance cycling people and true hikers. And they might be professionals, but they also have this adventure side to them, and they are maybe design driven, because what we think is different is like we really love, I love like mountain equipment, Black Diamond, all these brands, North Face. I mean, I don't know if I love it anymore, North Face, but like the history of North Face and Summit series, I have a like tremendous respect of the people who work in the companies at some stages, but they are not from our generation. That's my point of view, at least. So they still do great product, but they also, most of them are were companies based in a mountain town selling to city people. And we are maybe the opposite. Like we're a design driven outdoor company. And then some people, they don't like that. They find that a friction point. They don't like our colorways. They think maybe our design is too modern or pretentious even, or I don't know. But like that's fine. There's 7 billion people on this planet now. There should also be room for a portal. So that's our kind of market strategy. And we have some markets that reacted quickly, but to be honest, like we didn't know when we started. And maybe we're fortunate with our experience that, say, also my background in fashion or the outdoor space, that we knew retailers globally already. So we don't really need to cater to, like I say, British consumer, German consumer, Korean consumer, or because if we would need to do that, and also as a Scandinavian, if we wanted to succeed in Norway, people are quite conservative and they are very much buying the same. So then we probably needed to cater very much to the market needs, but we're catering more to a certain individual or mindset. So we're just like bringing this and say, this is what we want to provide to the world. And then we see, okay, where is there any reaction? And then we try to go with the flow, of course, because we need to go a bit with the flow. But so we saw initially, okay, Korea did super well for us. We had no idea that I knew that Koreans are modern, they love outdoor, they love new things, they're not so heritage based. So it could be an opportunity, but we didn't really go for that opportunity. It just happened to us. And then UK is strong as well because there is a strong outdoor culture. There is also a strong culture in terms of outdoor brands in a casual context, even. People are quite casual. So that was working really well for us initially. But I think it's like say it's more from a purist perspective. We think that if we build the right things, the right people will come. And I think we see also with success of say Arc'teryx today, like they really built product for an extreme user. And now so many people are walking around like in jackets that were made for alpinism, and they're using them to go to the supermarket, and they're happy using them going to the supermarket. And that was also always the case. That's what I realized when I went through these old catalogs from the 80s and 70s from outdoor brands, that we think that this kind of core thing is a new thing, but it happened also then. Like there was even some funny commercials in the UK where someone said that this jacket actually works for mountaineering because they sold most of them to people who were going to the pub. And now we think that's a new kind of scenario, but it's been happening since the beginning because these products are versatile, they're comfortable, they're providing some sense of protection or utilitarian features. So yeah.
I actually love that. The fact that you're just making the stuff that you guys want and you're doing the things and that you're interested in and other people are into that too. So they might like the products or interested in the products too. So I do love that. And your point there about the outdoor the great jackets and the Arc'teryx jackets and things like that being used. Nowhere is a better example of that as Chamonix, that you will walk
Yeah.
down the street and see a granny walking with their shopping bags in a 20-year-old North Face coat or a Patagonia coat or whatever. You will see outdoor brands and apparel that's 20, 30 years old that's got patches on the arm or whatever. So it's an example of how it's always been used.
Yeah. Probably the only like difference is that in Chamonix, that granny might have been to Mont Blanc. So yeah, she's actually used it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, good point. Where do you think the current trail running growth curve is? You know, we're seeing it increase and increase. Where do you think it is?
I don't know, right? It's hard to tell. A lot of people are doing trail running now. And like you said, also with this kind of golf analogy or moving like golf Ironman thing, at least what I see in Scandinavia is that it's a different demographic also entering trail running now. And so we have a certain races that are maybe attracting more that them like a different demographic than the traditional ultra trail demographic. And I think it's good that the sport is growing. But it's also, I'm not sure how long term a lot of that growth is. So some people might be, it's like maybe a bucket listing. It's what I'm feeling for some people right now. And I think that's cool and that's fine as well. But maybe then that will show some decline eventually. But of course, some of the people will stay. But I'm not sure where we are. I think the sport is still growing and it will continue to grow. But it might not be that everyone who is currently in the sport will be in the sport forever. I mean, we also see with ultra running that there is quite a lot of people and come and they crash or like they burn very bright and then they crash as well and then they leave. So yeah.
That is one of the themes with the sport. But I do think that the increase, some of the increase is now, like when you used to go to the running club or the athletics club or the run group 10, 15 years ago, maybe not even 15 years ago, like whenever I got into trail running around 2010, you went to the club. The focus was on about a training session, on training with a group, and you heard about the UTMB and the other races and ultra running. Even, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, people were only hearing about ultra running, never mind UTMB, from people who were 50 and 60 and 70 in the club. So you're hearing about it from your peers. Whereas now, because there's so much money in the sport, you're hearing about people who are doing a half marathon in Bristol are there and hearing about UTMB Snowdonia because of
Yeah.
marketing and
Yeah.
Instagram ads, and that's just fueling the increase in casting the net wide. And as you say, it's not a it's I mean, I'm not I don't even have an opinion whether it's a good or a bad thing. It's just a thing. It's just part of where the growth is now.
Yeah, and I think you will always have all kind of events, right? Like there's people who are very vocal about some negative aspects of some races, or I think it's like you just need to understand what you're signing up for. Like you can still find some crazy, obscure local races. Like I have a friend here who does a race in Norway that is crazy. Like I'm not even sure the route is completely safe. It's unmarked. It's usually foggy. It's like it's like wet uphills. It's like so if you want to go and do that and have that experience, you're more than welcome. If you then also want to run a race where like you have crew every 5 kilometers, that's also possible now. So it's like you can have all different kinds of experiences. There is not one experience also for all. And I think also at different stages of entering into the sport, people feel comfortable with different types of events. So I'm very comfortable running an unmarked course, but I can also understand that that's if I was a race director myself, I'm not sure I would have an unmarked race. It's very typical in Norway to have like unmarked mountain races, but that means that everyone needs to have a fancy GPX watch. So, and know how to upload the GPX file to their GPS watch. So, and a lot of people don't even know how to do that, even if they might have the right watch. So, it might be that you're creating barriers that are also unnecessary. So, I don't know. Like, I think there's enough things to choose from. And maybe the only thing that I personally struggle with a bit right now, and it's like, say, with UTMB, like the finals here in Chamonix, is that it's difficult how to manage, right? But people want to enter the race, they sign up, they get into the lottery, they get through the lottery. And then I find that currently there seems to be some people, and I know some people as well, that they take a bit too lightly on not showing up to the start line. And not even professionals, people who made the lottery. And then I'm like, how do you understand what this race means to some other people? Because you made it and maybe you're not in the shape you should be, or you have some other obligations, but you should not even have entered the lottery if you didn't have any intention to be on the start line. That's my perspective. And if you're actually properly injured, I will give it to you. That's fine. I mean, I respect not starting. But if you're just like, yeah, I didn't have the season I expected to have as a mid packer, it's like, get your shit together and go to the start line. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely is easier to get to the start line in terms of, yes, you're not directly paying your way into it, but you are essentially buying stones along the way
Yeah.
to give yourself better opportunity. Whenever I ran UTMB, it was a 2-year process to get the ITRA points to get into the lottery.
Yeah.
And you literally, even if you weren't gonna have the race you wanted to have, like my CCC, I wasn't gonna have the race I wanted to have, but I needed the ITRA points so I could apply for TDS the next year.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it was gonna take me another year to gain the points and 3 more races. So it's easier to get to the start line. I think is
Yeah.
one of the points. So I guess it's easier to throw away the place. Let's chat a bit about your own running because just respectful of your time as well. I'm sure there's plenty to do where you are right now.
Yeah. There's a
Uh,
run to be done this morning at some point, but we still got some time. Yeah.
yeah, so like looking at someone's UTMB index page doesn't really paint a very complete story. So let's fill in some of the blanks. Like I see you've towed the line at Zagama. You just had a great result. Was it 1 week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago at Monte Rosa at the in the 50K category? But also jumping back on your index, I can see like you jumped into the miler at Cullinan really early on
Yeah.
paper in your journey, and also you had TDS last year that you DNF'd, and you're going again this year. Talk a little bit about your own running, where those choices have come from, and maybe let's then circle back and chat a bit about TDS.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going quite deep, quite fast, and maybe it's been some of my issue as well. But I mean, I've enjoyed the
It's the
process
ultra
and I'm
way.
having fun. Yeah. So I did my first. I never raced a 10K half marathon or a 5K. My first, or before I raced a marathon. So I jumped into my first marathon in 2016. So I was always jogging a bit growing up. I did a few trail runs with my mother. It was super casual. Like I was not a runner, but I was very active. And then, like I said, in school, I was running a bit because we had to, and I did quite well, but nobody told me to run. But I got into trail running basically after my first marathon because I signed up because I had a friend who wanted to do the marathon. And I was always watching half marathons on TV or marathons. I was interested in the sport, but I never did it. And then I signed up to do the Oslo Marathon in 2016, and I didn't train for it properly at all. I think I ran in 3:19, but I was so happy because I was even scared to not finish. And the time is not a good time for a serious runner, but for someone who is completely recreational, it's a pretty decent time. So I was happy. And then I started training more properly after. I took a few months off because I was like very tired because my body needed it. But then I got into I signed up for an ultra early 2017 because I knew about ultra running from before. I've been watching videos. I was super inspired by that classic Nike UTMB documentary. I still watch it a lot. I think some people around me are upset I'm watching this, yeah, 10 times a year at least. So with like David Laney and Tim Tollefson and Zach Miller. So that's my crew.
Classic.
But yeah, so then I thought it looked insane, and I grew up like as a snowboarder. Like I said, I'm used to being in the mountains. I was a mountain biker, or I was out a lot, but I didn't think that this kind of endurance was for me. So I entered into a 50K in Oslo that was not so technical. It's like the eco trail that they do as a concept also in Paris and around. I think the Oslo one is more technical or some more trail at least than some of these other iterations. And I think I placed about top 20, 25. And of course, it's not super competitive as a race, but it was my first ultra and I was really scared. So I thought, okay, maybe I can be like okay at this thing, you know, it's kind of fun and it's fun to train. So yeah, then I went on to do some really technical mountain races this summer. Like we have one in Norway that is super cool called Hornindal. It's very steep up and down. So I did the shorter one. They have a 72K with 5,500 meters as well. And I've done that a few years after, and I did quite well in that kind of distance and terrain. And then I jumped into an 80K already that fall of 2017. And I thought it was like not going to be possible for me to run an 80K already. And that was also the Norwegian championship that year. So I think I was like top 10, 12 or something. And I was quite excited. And I had a tough day and it was too long for me. I had a lot of cramps. I don't think muscularly I was ready. But then I kind of jumped straight into it. And I think there's this allure, at least, like you said about these 100 milers just a few years later, but there's this allure about the 100 miler. And I didn't come from like a high school running background. So for me, it was probably too early, some of these longer distances, but I was really excited to run them. And I had some speed even from early on. I'm a lot faster now because I built a lot more speed, but I think for me, like I really enjoy the kind of 80K distance, but there's not so many 80Ks anymore, like 80, 100K, at least in like Europe. So I think that's like an distance where I still would excel because I can go pretty hard and I can sustain for that amount of time. But yeah, some of the DNFs and the stuff we see after is that I've had quite a lot of like stomach issues and problems as soon as we get over like 12, 15 hours, like things are really like difficult for me at times. So I've worked a lot in the past year to try to figure some of those things out. So last year for TDS, I was in really good shape and I dropped at Corme de Roselen, so just below like between 65 and 70 kilometers, I think. And my legs were like perfect. I was set up to have an amazing race. I was feeling super strong. I had no issues, but I had really bad stomach cramps. And I'm not sure how many of your audience had stomach cramps, but like I'm even happy like if I have a bad stomach or I'm nauseous and I need to throw up, I mean, that's fine. That can be a part of the game, but stomach cramps is kind of difficult to keep moving forward. So I tried to problem solve for like 45 minutes and nothing really happened. So I decided to decided to stop. And so I've had some issues with like longer races. And I think also initially, to be honest, like last year, I really learned how to race better around also Segama last year. I did pretty well for my level. This year, I was a bit overtrained actually entering the race. My result was still fine, but I should have been 15, 20 minutes faster this year. So I'm happy to go back next year. I'm still running good enough times to be qualified as an elite within the race. So that's exciting, but I think I started racing too hard when I started running because nobody told me how hard it should be to race. So I thought like, okay, racing should be pretty hard. So I'm always probably I used to go out way too hard. So that's something I
Okay.
learned. I learned that last year. So my Sagama last year, I had like such a good time for the first 2 hours, and then I was pushing. And then I was like, is this how racing should really feel? And then I had like my best result to date, at least back then. I think my ITRA score from that race was just below, like around 800, and the UTMB was a bit lower. I mean, sometimes they differ. So I was like, okay, if racing to my potential feels like this, then I'm quite happy because I used to just not blow up all the time, but I used to go super hard and just try to hang in there. So I think it maybe took me like 7 years to arrive to the point of understanding that you shouldn't race that hard. Yeah, and I also had like two DNFs at CCC, and both of the times at DNF, I was completely dead. So I'm like, I was not able to move forward. So yeah, uh,
You you've had some good DNFs. So did you get to the bottom of the stomach cramps? I have to say the only time I've ever experienced stomach cramps are from like a really bad like virus or maybe from a really bad from like alcohol poisoning if I think
yeah.
back to many years ago. So they are absolutely debilitating. It's
Yeah.
not like a calf cramp. There's nothing you can
No,
do.
no, no, no.
They'll
Yeah.
even they're so bad that you will get the sweats and curl up on the ground.
Yeah. No, I think for me, like I went high carb also quite early on. So heard like now it's like now everyone is catching up, but Jim Walmsley went high carb super early and he tried to tell people, but people didn't want to listen. So I went high carb, but I think I didn't go high. I have not been hydrating well enough, basically. So for the high carb. So what I figured is that I'm drinking a lot more now than I used to. And it seems that it's fine. Let's see for TDS this year. Like I'm still a bit like yeah, I didn't do a long race this year, so I'm still a bit uncertain how it's going. But yeah, at least I think with like higher fueling, you need also more hydration, at least for me. So, and I used to be like a camel. I could run like 2 hours on half a liter, I thought, and yeah, that's maybe not good for the stomach in the end. So yeah, I'm fueling a lot more and hydrating a lot more now.
Well, how many years did we see that Killian was, go out for a 5 hour long run with nothing, just a handful of water in the river. So
Yeah.
these are the things that influenced us. So there's no shame in that. Why TDS? It's the hardest
Um,
in the group, and you're coming back for another go at it.
Yeah, I think I do very well in technical terrain. So I think it's coming from also, say, my background, or even when I started trail running, I understood just from snowboarding or even maybe a bit mountain biking. I didn't mountain bike that much, but that I'm good at finding lines and committing to the lines in downhill, especially. So I'm a pretty good downhill runner. I'm not John Alban, he's insane, but I'm pretty good downhill. And I saw that also in Monte Rosa, yeah, soon 2 weeks ago. That yeah, there was like really high level, and some of these guys they are good downhill, but I still had like not a problem passing them downhill. And of course, it's also a bit you need to be strategic because you can run very hard early downhills and then destroy your legs. But if you manage well, you can still take up some time in the downhill. And I also really love the climbing, and I think the climbing in TDS, it's good. Some people are really upset about a few of the climbs, but I'm really happy when I'm climbing. So I think the course suits me well. And yeah, I think it would be nice to run UTMB because it's even more competitive and see how you're doing within that field because I'm taking my running more seriously now as well. And to be honest, also some of my DNFs in the past, like some of my work life in especially 22 and 23 was quite intense and insane in terms of travel. So yeah, for example, like I had a race I really wanted to do, but then I had to go to Japan for work and I came back the night before the race and I still decided to start. And it's like I was leading that race, but I also fell asleep at 45K. So I think some of the decisions are maybe now I have a coach as well, and he was not super happy with some of my previous decisions, but I'm taking my running a bit more seriously. And I think I can also tell from some of the performances now that the balance is a bit better. But at the same time, like I'm competitive. I think it's fun to try to be your best, but I'm also not a pro athlete. Like, I mean, some of my index in some of the last races are not so far off some professionals. So, but at the same time, that's not my ambition to be like a full-time professional. I just want to compete and I find that it's fun. And let's see for TDS, like I have a time goal, but I also know with long races that things really quickly change. So I want to finish this year and I want to take care of my body and yeah, hydrate well and fuel well. But I know that my legs are good enough for a good time. Let's just see if the rest of my body is ready for it. So yeah.
Yeah, number one priority is always to finish. Uh,
Yeah.
is there
And I've
any
had some
goal that you
stupid
want to share with
finishes as
us?
well. So no. Yeah, I can share it. I can also just share like sometimes when you see like people like it's people DNF when they go too hard sometimes, but I also decided sometimes just to finish, right? So I think I had this 100 miler in Norway that it's not around anymore. It was super technical. And I think we did the first 80K or 85K in like 8.5 hours. And then I was like cramping so badly and had a lot of problems, but I decided to finish because I got super upset or angry. Actually, angry, I think is the right word. So I spent 22 hours on the next 80K. So I'm not sure how that split is looking like. The first 88 hours. and then the next 80, 22. So, I mean, I also know how to finish a race if I desperately need it or want to. But yeah, I think for the TDS, let's see. I mean, I'm happy with anything less than 24 hours, but I think my shape, like physical shape, should say that I should run 22 hours or just below 22. And let's see. I mean, I'm not going to run with like a timer for every segment, so I think
Yeah, yeah, it's
the
more for
day
planning.
decides what happens. Yeah. But yeah, I
Totally,
know
yeah.
what kind of time to use to the few first bigger stations. And then after there, the day that happens will just happen. So yeah.
Yeah, all that's in your control is getting to the start line, and after that, sometimes you have to take what the mountains give you.
Yeah, and at least like I said, I've learned the fact that like it's better chasing people than being chased when you're completely done. So I had good experience chasing people in the last year, so I'm happy in that position as well. Of yeah, of course not going slow, but going more moderate in the beginning, and like yeah, just basically like some of the paces I would have in a long run, basically, or a bit faster probably, but not pushing yeah, from the beginning.
Yeah. All right. Let's start to wind things down a little bit. I do want to ask you, given that we can make some assumptions, you'll be wearing some portal gear. I'd love
Yeah.
to know what other gear, what are the shoes, what's the pack, what's the other gear that has you that basically interests you enough to be you're using right now.
Yeah, I'm still using a lot of stuff I've kind of accumulated over the years. So I still think like we are making a portal pack now. I'm waiting for the next prototype or like next sample. So we needed to do some adjustments for some sizing, and I'm not necessarily the sample size. So if that gets here in time, I will probably run in our own pack. If not, I will probably run in some kind of old, true and tested Salomon packs. I think that what they do well is they're super soft and they're very kind of they work on my body. I had some of the Arc'teryx packs, but they're so rigid that after a long race, I had like a kind of bruises all around the body. So I think like they're good for a long run, but for more than 10 hours, they're maybe causing too much friction. Yeah, I still use Petzl for headlamps. I think one of their new, I forgot the update of the, I forgot the name now, but yeah, the headlamp they updated that they always did. I'm not sure
Now,
you know the
and
name. The
NAO.
Now, yeah, the
Yeah.
Now, but I used to have the old Now, but the now they have Now. It's so lightweight and so nice. I think it's called RL, Now RL. I bought that last year and I was like hesitating if I needed it because I had the old one still with a lot of batteries. So now I
Same.
had to buy the new one with a lot of new batteries, but it's still super good. And I actually think I used that all through the night at TDS, and the battery was still at 50% or something, one battery. So that's great, and it's lightweight. And then yeah, for footwear, I'm a bit undecided, but I'm fortunate enough that I managed to pay and get someone who was pacing someone at Western States last year to get me the Tecton 2.5. So
Okay.
I have a pair of Tecton 2.5. I will probably run with them. I'm running a lot with Hoka Tecton 3 in training, and I think those are good and they suit the race for me. They're like stable enough, they're comfortable, they're like well cushioned. They're also on the faster end, but they're not, say, super, super fast. I think the Adidas shoe is really fast, but the Gravic Speed Ultra, but it's not stable enough for a race like TDS, at least not for me. And if we're also being realistic, it's like maybe good in the first 80K if you have speed, but then everyone is slowing down, and that's not a nice shoe to be in if you're slowing down. It's not made for that. So let's see. I've also been running a lot in the Hoka Mafate 5 that is just releasing. And I really love also the Mafate, like the 4. I think it's such a comfortable everyday trail shoe, and especially for someone, even if they're not even pushing their pace super fast, I would even have considered to go with that shoe all the way. I think for me, I want something a bit faster in the beginning, but I think that's a solid shoe choice that like it's stable, it's comfortable, it's yeah, very well cushioned, the grip is good. So yeah, running in a lot of Hoka recently, but I have also other stuff here. Like I have a Norda 005, I have some normals, I have the Adidas, I have the Satisfy shoe as well. And I could see myself bringing the Satisfy shoe and change into it. It's just a bit more difficult to put on than the Mafate 5 because of the more minimal heel. So depending on my condition, maybe it's easier for me to pull on a Mafate 5 if I want to change. But yeah, yeah, we could
Yeah.
also talk about that on that topic. Yeah.
So Tecton 2.5, nice
Mm.
choice. I do agree with you. The Tecton is just a comfortable shoe with that sock upper. What do you think about the carbon plate for TDS though?
Yeah, I'm fine with the carbon plate. Like, at least for me, like all this discussion with and without carbon, and I think it also comes maybe down to like the Satisfy or the Norda, or like I think some of these new modern like foams, they are very soft, but they need to be stabilized. It doesn't need to be carbon. It can be like some fingers of like nylon or something else, but I don't fully enjoy at least as a race shoe, I don't enjoy the shoes with modern foam that don't have any kind of stabilizer in terms of plate. And then, of course, some people have like, they have a foam blend that makes it not so soft, like, so it's like a EVA PIBA mix. Then I can understand it. I also think a shoe that I'm not currently running in, which could be good, is the La Sportiva Prodigio Pro. I think that's a shoe that also can tackle some technical terrain. So I didn't even bring, I have the North Face also, the Vective Pro 3. I don't find that shoe stable enough for a race like TDS or so I still think yeah, something that is made for the mountains, but on the faster end can work for some people. And yeah, it just depends on yeah, also like kind of what kind of comfort you want. I know some people struggle with the carbon plates that they find that is too rigid or I did 100 miler already in the Tecton 3 and I had like no problem. So no blisters, nothing. And I also finished, which doesn't always happen for me in the 100 milers.
Yeah, not to be discounted that important fact. Yeah, it's a good point that you make about the carbon plate and the foams because one of the things that I really think like I would love the Norda 005 if there was a little bit less ground feel. Like I think
Yeah.
it's a great shoe, but I think it only suits certain terrains because of the foot fatigue you can get from just rocky terrain. I think with the likes of the rocker that you mentioned, it has less ground feel. It doesn't have the plate and it has like a nice bounciness to it, but then it's got that extra weight. Um, where are you like thinking about the rocker and the Norda and the Tecton and even the original Mafate, which it was a good point. That is a great all rounder. What are you reaching for in your training if you're gonna race in the Tecton?
Yeah. I mean, I train a lot in all of those things actually. Like I really like the last year I raced also mostly in Tecton, but I also raced a lot in Tecton 2. I think that's a shoe now. They moved it into the lifestyle segment. But and I also see that like Judith Wilder and like I was running around her a lot in Segama this year, and it's like she's also in Tecton 2. So I still think that's a shoe that is like is a bit more stable, especially when really technical and you need to go fast. So I used that shoe and Tecton 3 for racing a lot last year, but then I was a lot in the rocker because I was testing a prototype and commenting a bit. So and the first time I took the rocker out, I was like really happy. I was not expecting what I had. So with these modern foams that are say more comfortable and like less ground feel, I felt like at least on my daily easy runs that I could recover better with shoes like that. So I think that's also the case with the Mafate for me that I see a lot of people go out in the Tecton 2, for example, which I find like it's not so well cushioned. So I much prefer to be out in like Mafate or like the Rocker or even like if it's more technical, the Norda 005 on my kind of easy runs. And then I do also some of my long runs in Tecton 3 in training. And yeah, so it depends. Like yeah, and I know some Hoka runners, they run a lot in the Tecton 3. Like they don't really dabble too much with any other shoes. So I think it's also can you work for some people quite as a kind of frequent shoe. And also a lot of like Adidas athletes I know, they're like almost exclusively running in the Agravic Speed Ultra. So I think it's like if you get used to a shoe, maybe you're happy with that. But yeah, I like a well cushioned shoe now. And I think also in the past, I mean, we were like obsessed about Killian, and I ran also CCC and like super minimal Salomons, and I was on the verge of having a good time 3 times, and like at least I managed to get myself to the finish once. But I also regret looking back that like even in the shape I was the first year I did CCC, that if I just had like a Hoka Speed Goat or something that year, my result would have been a completely different result, because it was just down from like running down from Grand Col Ferret in like super minimal Salomons, bombing the hill. Yeah, I don't think it was ever a good idea. And yeah,
I ran CCC in the Speed Goat one, so
good on you.
the 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 shoe I put it on my feet, and I think I retied it a couple of times, but when I took my shoes off at the end, all of the blue dye had transferred onto my skin. My feet were blue from the dye. I thought there was something wrong. Um, let's wrap it up. I do one more question about gear. Do you have plans? First off, do you ever run with a belt? You know, we see like the red belt, the naked belt, they're all very popular. I think I've seen some sort of portal belts or some prototypes out there.
Yeah, we have a belt actually. I use it a lot, so I have one here. So we are sold out of the black belt now, but we have more coming in a month. So I run a lot with belts. I also have the raid belt. I think the raid belt is super good for some things. I think yeah, there's some I think also like a lot of belts, not all belt is the best solution for everything. So I think they all have different kind of use cases, but I much prefer personally to run with belts than vests. So of course, with especially with UTMB races, there is mandatory equipment, and you need to carry all this mandatory equipment, and there is quite a long time between aid stations. So you also need it for fueling. So I will run in a vest, but yeah, for example, what is amazing with Segama is that you just need a windbreaker and half a liter. So I love to run in a belt then. Yeah. I
Which
think
seems
also for
amazing because Zagama, I think about 80% of the time we see Zagama, there's rain. there, there, it seems like it should be a waterproof, not a windbreaker.
no, but I think it's also because there is so many spectators, and usually they have stuff with them. So I think it feels very safe still. So I'm sure that if you were in trouble, people would help you to get off the mountain.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's wrap it up. I appreciate your time. I've enjoyed this conversation. What is there anything that you want to leave us with? Any things to look forward to, maybe on the portal front or personal front, running front for the rest of the year?
Yeah, I mean, for Portal, we're just like speeding ahead. I mean, we're launching new product yeah, early September. So there will be I'm super excited to have a like lightweight windbreaker. So yeah, I think for me as a runner, that's some of the things that I bring most of the times. Yeah, I think windbreakers are super versatile for me in general as a runner. So of course depends on the climate and where you live, but it's something I'm grabbing for a lot of the year. So even as an emergency thing, if it's good weather, and then also in fall and spring, it's something nice, especially to start the run or even during all the run. And at least for me, also in winter, I find that running with merino and a windbreaker usually makes more sense than running in a shell, because I just get wet from the inside in most shells. So that's quite exciting. And then we're also, yeah, we're doing some merino. I think that's depending on where you are and what season you are entering. That might not be applicable to everyone, but I think that's also comfortable, even also just hiking or casually. So yeah, that should be fun. And then yeah, we're already working on. I mean, we finished the next spring, which is also exciting, and that's also we sold that to quite a lot of stores. We're excited to see that next spring. A lot of things coming there. And then I'm all personally, we're working on the next fall already and seeing already prototypes of the next fall. So of course, for me, who have seen a lot of the other stuff already, I'm excited about that now. But yeah, I'm also using a lot of the first stuff that we did every day. Like I'm heading out now soon, and I think the tech tees, for example, they're so versatile. They're very lightweight. So yeah, super comfortable trying to make products that are, yeah, can be everyday pieces as well as racing pieces.
Do you think that somewhere in the future that shoes would ever be on the horizon?
Yeah, I mean, I used to work with footwear a lot, and I know how expensive it is to do properly. So who knows? I mean, right now, that's not really on our kind of calendar. But we are already, of course, like many small brands and big brands, talking about collaborations, and we have dialogues with a lot of brands. So I'm being difficult in some of those conversations because it's nice to do a cool color of a shoe, but I would like to have the right shoe. And sometimes also some of these companies, they want to do collaborations to put energy behind a new model they are releasing, and if you don't necessarily agree with the model, then it might not be a collaboration. So let's see. I mean, I think there will be something in the next few years in terms of yeah, a project together with someone. And then I think to do something from scratch, that's not really on our agenda right now because yeah, we're also, we say we're a small company, we're four people, we had some small like friends and family investors which put some money, but it's still not a lot of money in the big picture. So and yeah, even the total of what we put into the company for now is not enough to make one trail shoe. So so I think that's it's not happening right now, let's say. And I think it's also very competitive, that space now, and a lot of people are putting time and money. And I don't really see, of course, there are some brands doing well in the apparel space, but I'm personally also not scared of the apparel of a lot of the big running shoe behemoths. I think, yeah, I don't need to mention their names in case we do something with them, but I'm less scared of their apparel than their footwear. So I'm happy to do something in the apparel space for now. Even of course, if like we love shoes and shoes are amazing tools, and it would be cool to have your exact idea executed and like we talked about, like yeah, I mean there's a lot of great shoes now, and I think we're happy seeing these new foams and more energy put into trail running. But I'm yeah, I also know what I would change with some of the shoes I'm looking at right now to have something I would personally be even a bit more happy with. So I think there's room to still innovate. So yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, we'll say no more. Patrick, thanks so much for your time. I've really enjoyed it, and I'll catch up with you hopefully in a couple of weeks in Chamonix.
Yeah, I was about to say, so yeah, have a good journey, and yeah, thanks for taking the time as well. And it was good, and I hopefully see you here very soon.